Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Monday, February 24th, 2020. How y'all doing? SCG Indy was this weekend. The Mirror Inverter won. Look at my shocked face. Oh, you can't see me, but that's okay, because there is no shocked face. I will say, though, and I don't know if this is a credit to the commentary team, or if the deck is just really more interesting than it appears. But from time to time, every format seems to have suffered the thing where it gets a bully deck. That it's like, this is the singular best thing you can be doing. So, either be able to beat it, or be playing it. And if you're able to beat it, make sure you can beat everything else on the field that everybody's throwing at it. You know, this isn't a novel event that's never happened before and, oh God, we don't know what to do. No, it happens from time to time. I think... it just happens from time to time. So this isn't the first time we've had the quarterfinals be pretty much all, or each match in the quarterfinals feature a specific deck, or near thereof. And both matches in the semis be mirror matches, though that didn't happen this time. You know, this isn't the first time we've been here. This isn't the first time that there's been a deck that, you know, there's probably like a 30 to 40% chance any given round you tune into, you're going to see a mirror match of that deck. Well, okay, maybe less chances of a mirror match, but you're going to see one side playing that deck. But I will credit that watching this deck be played, especially in the mirror matches, is way more fascinating than I can ever recall one of these bully decks being. Or it's like, oh, look, they got no-go. Oh, look. They turned their opponent's best creature into an elk. Oh, look, they turned their food token into an elk. Oh, here's Urza. Oh, look, they've got 1 billion artifacts. So that construct is, you know, just fucking huge. You know, or it's just kind of like boring and monotonous. It's like, yep. And this is the thing happening right now. Because, oh, it's turn 2 and they were on the play. The mirror matches here, and I will say, it could really be just that Emma and Ryan are that fucking good. But talking about the lines of not only managing your graveyard, or, you know, watching the threshold for deciding you're either going to go for the inverter win or you're not, managing your opponent's graveyard by making sure they don't have an easy inverter win, but you're also not making their digs, like, crazy good. They were actually fascinating mirror matches to watch. I caught part of the quarterfinals, part of Pete Ingram's match in the quarterfinals. I watched most of the primary quarterfinals match. The overwhelming majority of people did not want to watch the Mirror Inverter. But it's funny because, yeah, I beat up my data plan a little more by, Sundays are our chore day, you know, garbage, laundry, all the errands that need run. So Sundays usually drive through for dinner. This particular Sunday was McDonald's. And I was listening to the coverage as I went to, you know, go grab food and everything. And I get home and, like, I can't tell you the exact state of the game, but I can tell you that it really looked like Peter Ingram was screwed. Like, he had milled over yet another dig through time, which I think was his third one. It just, like, there was no way he was winning that game. I get home, I, shut off my car, I lock my phone, so I'm no longer hearing the coverage. Gather up everything, take it inside, disperse, give everybody their stuff. Seriously, dude. Oh, we're switching lanes, so, just back off a second. God. Wow. You're kind of an asshole, aren't you? But yeah, do all the stuff, sit down, open up the coverage again, and it's like, Ryan's like, I think this is over, and Emma's like, holy crap, is Pete Ingram gonna win? Like, is this happening? She's like, no, check it. Like, he's got the dig. And, he digs, and there's exactly 7 cards in the library at that point, and finds the Thassa's Oracle. Unfortunately, not a counterspell, so it wasn't assured, because if he couldn't land the Thassa's Oracle, well, I don't know, because even if he couldn't land the Thassa's Oracle, at that point, there's only 5 cards left in his library, so unless Collins Mullen can do something, I don't know, unless Collins Mullen can get his chase off the table. But she's like, no, like, he's gonna dig, there's the Oracle, no counterspell left, and he goes to play the Oracle. It's like, does it resolve? Oh my god, it does. Holy crap, how did that just happen? So, I didn't catch the semis or the finals, but I'm not surprised that Pete Ingram won this tournament. Like, they should have just given it to him right there. Like, alright, everybody who won their matches, you are 2nd through 4th, Pete Ingram just wins. Like, that was pretty amazing to watch. However, playing against Inverter feels awful. Maybe not so if you're also playing Inverter, but when you're not, it just, it's disgusting. I don't disagree with the notion that we should give the format a little time to try to figure it out, though. I know it sucks right now, and I get that. I totally get it. And I'm not like a high-end player or anything like that. I'm not depending on tournament winnings to, 1, pay out dividends, and 2, keep my relevance in the content creation sphere or anything like that. So my perspective is somewhat different, but I think players have become a little too reliant on bans. Now, I don't know what you do with Mirror Inverter, though. The biggest problem... Okay, there are 3 big problems with this deck. 1, it is incredibly consistent. To line up the turn 5 kill if you're not disrupted. 2, the disruption once the combo pieces start coming out is near non-existent. Your options to beat this deck are to either play counter spells and have a counter up for all their combo hits, or try to race it. Which brings us to the third problem, is it's a control shell. They spend at least the first 3 turns of the game just kind of shredding your hand and countering your shit. Or killing it, one of the 2. So, to race the deck becomes incredibly difficult because now, if you're putting enough pressure, you're slowing down the combo because they have to take the time off to continue to rip apart your hand and kill your shit and that kind of stuff. It changes how they prioritize dig unless they naturally drew the combo in their opening or in the couple draw steps in between. But it's a control deck with this huge combo finisher in it that is relatively cheap. So, I get turn 5 combo outside of standard sounds really slow. But, Saheeli Cat didn't really make it modern. It tried. it was not effective. So that, I think, skews some of the viewpoint depending on which format you're coming from, standard or modern. If you're coming from modern, you hear turn 5 combo win, you're like, I mean, it's turn 5 though, right? Like, surely you can shut shit down in those first 4 turns. But, you know, Pioneer is a little bit slower than modern and a little bit faster than standard. Turn 5 combo with so few ways to interact with it, and also when you figure the expensive combo piece is turn 4. Turn 5 is very cheap combo piece, which leaves up plenty of mana for counter magic. And that's usually, like, people are talking about how, oh, well, everybody thought the Heliod combo was busted for a hot minute. Yeah. And then people remembered that that deck isn't blue, and therefore you just need to have some kind of interaction. You know, like, Pithing Needle is actually rather effective. And it's not likely they can prevent your interaction from landing. The most busted combo decks throughout time have generally been blue, in my experience. Granted, my experience is not as long and deep as some others out there. Because having the access to the counter magic to protect your combo pieces makes the whole thing just so much more difficult. So I think eventually it's going to need answered. I'm pretty sold on something needs to be done about this deck, but I don't fault WotC for not pulling an emergency ban situation and kind of waiting for the regular ban cycle. I gotta say, I wouldn't even be surprised if they didn't ban something in this next ban announcement, which should be, what, next Monday? Isn't it the first Monday of the month? I don't know, whenever the next BNR announcement is. I think there are going to be a lot of people upset and frustrated if they don't issue a ban then. But I can see them wanting to let it ride a little bit. Now, Lotus Breach, also a somewhat rough deck to interact with, but in that one you have more widespread options. Because, like, Grafdigger's Cage works. Tormund Script works. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the answers you have to be broadcast. You have to let that Grafdigger's Cage sit on the table. You have to let the Tormund Script sit on the table. Spirits gets an advantage there, I guess only if you're running the Azorius version, where you run the Remorseful Clerics. I don't think those are in the board of the version I've been running. Because as long as you have Rattle Chains on board, you can flash out Remorseful Cleric and respond to their Breach from Below. Is that the name of the card? Underworld Breach? Whatever. The card that turns on the Breach side of Lotus Breach. I can't remember what it's called. You can respond to that by flashing out the Remorseful Cleric and sacking it to kill their graveyard. Now again, they also have blue mana, but Lotus Breach does not seem to run a lot in the way of counter spells. In my very limited experience against it. Now, Lotus Breach could very easily be fixed if Lotus Field had Shroud instead of Hexproof. Can we, like, consider bringing back Shroud over Hexproof in some of these occasions? Like, like, creatures with hexproof, that's kind of one thing. Now, it does kind of wedge you into black or white as far as colors where you have access to untargeted board wipe removal. There are some edict effects, but you gotta clean up the rest of the crap first, so that the only option is to sack the hexproof creature. Like, I have this really adorable deck that I want to say it's Zuby sent me, Magic with Zuby on Twitter. I'm like 99% sure he's the one who sent me the list. And it's green-white enchantments. And, I have a lot of creatures to pick from. Like the Citizen Champions, hey, they're great to enchant. But my favorite creature to enchant are Paradise Druids. And especially if you get the Sentinel's Eyes on them, which gives them vigilance. Because they're hexproof then. Like, always. If you're not tapping it, like, don't ever tap them. But because they have hexproof, they are the best creature to just put a bunch of flashy pants on. But you still have to kind of look out for the Priest of Forsaken Gods style, like, sack decks. And you just have to make sure that you keep other creatures on the battlefield to sack in their place. But yeah, the Paradise Druid is the best creature to put pants on. Like, hands down. There's a reason Boggles is called Boggles, and it's because Slippery Boggle is hexproof. And see, and that's the big difference between hexproof and Shroud. If you haven't been around in the game long enough to know what Shroud is like hexproof, except you can't target it either. It just cannot be the target of spells and abilities. And Lotus Field would be unplayable without some sort of protection. Because you figure, like, yeah, you can use the 2 lands that you sack to it on turn 3 to put it into play. But that means on your turn 3, you're casting a 2-mana spell at best. So that already puts you a step behind. At least in my view, I'm one of those use all the manas. But even if you're not using both mana, like, decks that play on their opponent's turn, they like to hold up the mana, but you're still not holding it up, though. You gotta sack the 2 lands to it. And you can't just let mana float through their turn. So, if your opponent could then answer that on their turn 3/turn 4 with a Field of Ruin, I mean, they've just kicked your ass. And nobody would play that land because it wouldn't be worth that risk. So, having some protection definitely makes sense. But in the case of lands where there are so many fewer, like, untargeted land destruction spells, is there a spell that makes you sack a land? I can't even think of one. It's a lot different than giving creatures hexproof. And if it had Shroud, this deck would not be a problem. You could still, pull off some cute big mana strategies and everything. It's still quasi-ramp. It's still color fixing. Like, I may be mistaken, but I have never seen, again, in my limited experience, when playing against a Breach deck, I've never seen them use a natural red source. They always make the red mana off of Lotus Field. You also wouldn't be able to copy them with Thespian Stages. So in order to get, like, the big bump, and every time you got a Lotus Field, you would have to sacrifice 2 lands. Whereas Thespian Stage, of course, gets around that clause because it's not a Lotus Field when it enters the battlefield. It may still make Lotus Field kind of unplayable, not gonna lie. But it would make it slightly more playable than if it had no protection at all. But I'm more confident in an ability to find an answer to Lotus Breach without there being, like, just the one silver bullet deck. Like, Spirits has decent play against a Mirror Inverter, which is why, you know, it did so well this weekend, even though no copies of that made the top 8 to my knowledge. Could be wrong. But it has really good play against a Mirror Inverter, but it kind of just gets its ass kicked all over the place by any aggro deck. Playing against aggro decks with that deck is very difficult, because your creatures are... It's kind of like when you have to play Dredge without the Dredge aspect, like you can't pull the stuff back out of the graveyard. All you have is these kind of crappy, expensive creatures that aren't worth the mana cost. Because, you know, the whole thing is, well, they're only in the deck to enable this other strategy. So when Spirits meets aggro, you know, your 3 mana, well, hell, you know, your 2 and 3 mana Spirits are getting fragged by Wild Slashes and Shocks. You know, your opponent is always trading up in their removal. You know, Fatal Pushes and even Cast Downs seeing some play in the black decks. So there's a balance there. I think it has a slightly better win chance against Dimir Inverter than aggro does, but it's not great against aggro. So Dimir Inverter is warping the format and dictating what decks can be played and what can't, but the format's always kind of set like that, you know, any given format. There's always decks that are like, oh, look at this cute, fun thing I came up with, and it's like, and this, like, just totally isn't playable against the quote-unquote real decks of the format. But usually, like, a good format has a handful of good decks near the top. When there is one deck dictating, you know, you end up in the situation we had back in the Energy Standard. Rami Red really wasn't that great a deck in general against everything else the field could do besides Temur Energy. But it had the best win percentage against Temur Energy. Well, not everything. There were other decks that had decent win percentage against Temur Energy, but sucked against Rami Red. So, yeah. Anyway, I can see them coming to the conclusion that they need to do something about it. I don't know when that will happen. I can also understand the justification behind, okay, well, let's give the players time to try to find an answer. Like, personally, I feel like the Field of Ruin deck, Field of Ruin got banned way too early in the new standard. Not Field of Ruin, Field of the Dead. Especially since apparently Field of Ruin was on its way back into the format, which would have been a great help against that deck. I think there was a big reaction to that. It got banned, and then the format just got so much worse. And, you know, you gotta be kind of careful there, because when they ban Dimir Inverter, what space does that open up for the next bully to just take over the format? So, I think giving the format a little time to adjust and evolve is justified. And, I mean, again, I know it sucks. I hate playing against that deck too, but becoming too dependent on bans from the mothership is bad for the game too. So, anyway, that's where we're at. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and I don't know, hopefully I'll talk to y'all again sometime this week. Don't hold your breath, but maybe.